Hello duelists, it's Tombox here, welcome to MST.TV, and this is gonna be one of the most requested videos from you guys. It is the Circuit Break full set analysis, and like all previous full set analysis, we're gonna cover the most hype cards, the generic secrets, new archetypes, and try to cover their mechanics and how they're played a little bit, just so that you guys kinda know what you're getting into, and then we're gonna go into archetype support for existing archetypes, part of the base set. And then we're going to go to TCG exclusive, OCG imports, and finally other notable cards that are perhaps underrated, kind of quirky, kind of fun, but who knows. Let's just go into this stuff. Now, before we talk about the hype cards here, I want to talk about the rarities. Now, in terms of rarity, there are several cards that I want to note here, and the two cards mainly I want to note would be Spiral Double Helix, and of course there's also Destrudo. Both of these cards are not, well, secret rare, and I actually thought that both of these cards would be, and if they were, to me this is what it means so far. Now, based on what we saw in the previous ban list, most of the money secrets didn't really get hit. The problem secrets did get hit, but some of the money secrets still survived without being touched. Mainly I'm talking about the cards such as Masterpiece, Diagram, and to some degree Zodiac Barrage. Although Zodiacs were completely nerfed because they were the problem archetype, so they just didn't have an excuse there. But in terms of money secrets, those ones didn't get hit. But in terms of ultra rares, most of our powerful ultra rares did take a hit. Notably, we can talk about Dynamite Knight, we can talk about Ignis, and even to some degree True King's Return. Those cards did take a hit, and those are the ultra rares. In other words, lower rarity cards are more likely to get hit, and I believe this is the same case, since I believe OCG already realized that these cards are very powerful, so they might take a hit earlier than expected. So that's just a forewarning for you guys, and now let's actually get started into today's topic. Now, for the most hype cards, we have Spiral Double Helix. This card is probably going to be the most hype card in the set, and luckily it's not even a secret. It's an ultra rare. Like, ultra rare should be cheaper, right guys? But wrong. This card is actually quite expensive online in terms of its pre-order price right now. Of course, it will drop down once we get more supply, and once the supply meets the demand, it will obviously kind of lower in increments. But for now, the price online is like 50 bucks, which I don't believe is right, because a box of Yu-Gi-Oh cards comes with 4 ultra rares. Now, with the 4 ultra rares, it is part of a set of 10 other ultra rares, I guess. So 10 ultra rares, and you're gonna get 4 in a box. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the supply will easily be met, and once the supply is met, the price will tank. Of course, if the supply does not get met, and then we get tournament results where, wow, Spirals are tier 0, and the reason why this card is really good is because it generates a crap ton of advantage from +9 to +12, depending on the combo you're going with. If you sack a machine dupe, you can perhaps even do an FTK. That's all available, so yeah, this is why this card is really, really good. So yeah, so the price right now, I would actually personally think that on release it should be like about like a $25 to $35 card, just because it's an ultra rare. And even for an ultra rare, that's a really high price point, because usually I don't even talk about the ultra rare prices, because ultra rare prices, they're just gonna go away. Like 10 bucks is at most as I would charge, but this one is very crucial to the Spiral deck, and it is the one card that pushes them to the next tier, so that's why it's so high. Next up, we have Destrudo, the Lost Dragon's Frisson. The reason why this card is so good, luckily it's only a rare, not a secret, so it's about like a $2 rare. You can juice someone. If you really want to juice someone, you can put at $5 at Sneak Peek, and only a Sneak Peek, because there's going to be a ton of these ones. Now, this card is going to give us access to Synchro 7s very, very quickly. That's why Dragon's Ravines are all sold out, bought out, and we also have Dragon Shrine also taking place in other people's decks, such as ABC. Now, this is a very amazing card because it is a tuner that can be special summoned from the graveyard. So in other words, you can actually get quick access to Black Rose without using your normal summon, and yeah, that puts a lot of deck in jeopardy. And you get access to Ancient Fairy, and we even get the new Synchro level 7 that's a TCG exclusive. I'll talk about that in a bit, but yeah, this card is amazing. Now we have the next big hand trap, which is the Money Secret. I believe it's going for 50 bucks. I believe it will actually drop to 40, but that's just my opinion here. Why? Because I don't think it is a main deck worthy card, but I could be completely proven wrong. If Spirals or like other decks that can make huge boards kind of take off, this card will go up with it, just because it is so good at clearing off boards. And this card might warn other people that are going first to run anti or better yet, counter traps to counter this, just because it is very painful if this card resolves. Now this card, you can force your opponent to banish cards on the field until they match the number of cards you control. And the best part is, if you control no cards on the field, you can activate this card from your hand. Yeah, so one catch though, you have to activate this at the end of the battle phase. It does not stop your opponent from OTKing you if they have an OTK, but if they're just doing board development, you can punish their board development by banishing their cards face down. Banishing face down means they're not going to get anything out of it. It's going to just hurt. That's it. So spiral boards, this could be the spiral board record that you're looking for. And for the cover card, we have Borreload Dragon. Honestly, it's a very good card. In fact, it's one of the better cards. I would love to pull it. I believe it is currently sneak priced at about 35 to 40. Some people are valuing it pretty high because people do play it. It is one of the best rank 4s out there. If you're not a fan of Firewall, you think Firewall is just a pansy-ass weak garbage, then you'll love Borreload just because Borreload is just much bigger. It has a bit of a defensive effect to, well, protect you from being targeted from monster effect. It just protects itself. It's kind of selfish there. But in terms of its attacking effect, it can basically steal your opponent's monster and then send it to the graveyard the turn later. On top of that, it even comes with a quick effect to lower a monster's attack by 500. But I believe that effect is mainly used to trigger off the ROKKET archetype so that they can pop themselves and gain other sorts of advantage. So yeah, this one's about, I think it's gonna drop down actually once the demand is met, so it might go down to about like a $20 secret. Archetype Magician, this is another utility exceeds, think of it like Tornado Dragon. I mean, Tornado Dragon was a really good utility exceeds. This is a very good utility link monster, and it requires 2 monsters with the same type. And basically, upon summoning, it just compulses whatever it points to. If it has a co-link, you can do an excavation by calling out a card. If that card is in the excavation, you can add it to your hand. But honestly, it's actually pretty good, especially for decks that can synergize with the graveyard. You maybe can just call it wrong anyway, and then just mill cards. But all in all, a very, very good tool to have in the extra deck. And I believe a lot of people will just put one in there just because they can get access to it. And it also punishes your opponents by, if they have a monster in the wrong spot, you can go, pew, go away. And, you know, there's that. Next up, we have Blasting Wire. Is a secret rare. I believe this is going to be one of the more cheaper ones that you hopefully don't pull. Honestly, to me, it feels like one of those secrets that are going to turn into like a structure deck common sooner than later. This is Blasting Wire. So basically, you target a card in the same column as this one, and then you just blow it up. It's a secret rare. So it could be a $10 secret, and then probably dropping down to $5 very, very quickly. And as for Excessive Burial, I think this is the worst secret in the entire set, just because it is very difficult to meet the conditions. This is a watered down version of Premature Burial, and it has a cost of discarding a monster, and then you preferably want to discard a monster with a very high level, because it's just, you can only revive stuff that are lower level than whatever you've thrown out. The monster comes out with its effect negated, and you can only use one of these per turn. Honestly, it's just not that great. Maybe if you're playing a dragon deck, maybe it'll be a bit more useful, but to me, right now, this card just doesn't feel very good at the moment. It's just so heavy on the cost, it's so conditional. And unless you were playing it like a grave heavy deck where whatever you revive has a grave trigger, then yeah, sure, why not? But yeah, this another $5 secret, probably gonna go down to $2 in no time. Unless there's a deck that you think is gonna be very good in the future, definitely pick some up when it's $2 and just get a playset. Perhaps they'll rise again. Think of it as an investment. But that's all I got for the most hype cards of the set. Let's go into new archetypes. And I still have notable cards at the end, so if I didn't talk about your card here, it's probably down there. The very first archetype that's new that we're going to talk about is going to be the Altergeist. Altergeist is played by Ghost Girl in the show. Now, this archetype plays very interesting because it's a spellcaster archetype that is a bit more trap dependent. The traps will basically protect, empower your monsters, or perhaps even give you a basic deck synergy and switcheroo protection. Now, in terms of monster lineup, most monsters do 2 things, so that's kind of its quirk, and they all have different attributes and different levels too, so definitely more of a link based deck. So starting off with the level 1 Meluseek. Meluseek is a spot remover. If it deals a direct attack and it can attack directly, it will be able to send one of your cards into the graveyard. And notice that most of this deck will be able to send cards as targets, not just monsters or not just spells and traps. So it's just very generic, but not as popping. But this one is pretty decent, and also this card, if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, it serves as a deck searcher. Similar to a Sangan, it will recruit a card into your hand. Next up, we have ALTERGEIST Silkitas. Now, Silkitas is kind of an interesting card. Kind of reminds me of Magispectre Pegasus. It has a double bounce effect where you can target another ALTERGEIST card you control, and one card your opponent controls, and bounce them to the hand. Again, remember, it's just cards, so that's pretty decent. And if you do send this card to the graveyard, you can target an ALTERGEIST trap and put it back in your hand. So it has a bit of a retrieval thing going on with this one too. Although both these monsters aren't very strong, so they're not going to live on the board for very long. Now we have our Playmaker. Although this monster is also pretty weak in terms of stat points, 1600 attack, 1700 defense. But when you normal summon this card, you get to immediately set one of your ALTERGEIST cards from the deck onto the field. I guess that's pretty good, I guess. And it's also serving as a revival monster, so you are able to send one of your ALTERGEIST cards into the graveyard, excuse me, and then you're able to target another ALTERGEIST monster in the graveyard and then special summon them. So there's a little switcheroo going on. If you do synergize it very well with a Meluseek or maybe a Silkitas, you can probably set up even more traps and basically get everything ready. And this deck does come with a hand trap, which is the level 5. If you have an ALTERGEIST card and your opponent declares an attack, you can negate the attack, summon out this monster on the field, and then when this card is special summoned, target a card on the field and then negate its effect as long as this card remains face up. So it's alright. It doesn't have a graveyard effect or anything, but it's a pretty decent attack blocker with 2400 defense. I guess that's decent enough to eat, well, 2 hits. So block a hit and eat another hit. And then we have our Link Monster. The Link Monster, again, sends stuff to the graveyard. And a lot of these cards have some sort of graveyard-based effect. In ALTERGEIST Prime Banshee, during the main phases, this is a quick effect, so you can use it during, well, either player's turn. Tribute an ALTERGEIST monster, and then you can special summon an ALTERGEIST monster from the deck. So it reminds me a little bit about Spiral Double Helix in terms of special summoning stuff out to the graveyard to the zone it points to. And when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target an ALTERGEIST card and put it, well, in your hand. A lot of this dig out from the graveyard effect or dig out from the deck. Kind of just looking at this is just kind of reminding me of that. Now, next we have the trap lineup that kind of makes it very interesting. Camouflage is an interesting one. It acts as an equipped spell or an equipped trap. Whatever you equip it to, basically you can't target it for attacks, but it doesn't prevent them from attacking you directly if that's the only monster you have available. And when this card, your opponent targets that monster with an effect, you just negate that effect. I'm guessing that's a continuous effect, doesn't really trigger. So if this card is also in your graveyard, it has even a protection effect to basically prevent your cards from being destroyed by battle or card effects. So overall, a very decent card, whether it be on the field or in the graveyard. Next, we have ALTERGEIST Protocol, and I think this is the most powerful card in their trap lineup. ALTERGEIST cards you control cannot have their effects negated, so there's no solemn striking this deck. It's kind of useless if you ask me. You have to get rid of this card first. And not only that, when you activate a monster effect, whether it be like a Maxi or you activate an Ash Blossom or something along those lines, well, she can send another ALTERGEIST card that they control and then basically negate the activation and destroy that card. So that's a pretty painful effect. It's like they always have a Divine Wrath on you. So this is continuous Divine Wrath. Even though it is only once per turn, it is still pretty brutal. And then there's Personal Spoofing. Doesn't carry the ALTERGEIST name, which is good because, well, once per turn you can shuffle an ALTERGEIST card in your hand or face up on the field into the deck and add an ALTERGEIST monster. Basically, it lets you tag out. So if your opponent does use like a board wipe on you, you can tag all your cards, and so then you don't really get that, disadvantage. So there's that, and it's from the hand or from the field, so it lets you fix up your hand a little too. So that's the ALTERGEIST archetype. And on to the next one. Now, Crawlers is the next new archetype that I want to talk about, and this is by far one of the worst archetype I've seen just because of its own gimmick is kind of really, really lackluster. Like, if you change the wording a little, it would make a little bit more sense and it would actually be good. Now, this is a flip effect based archetype. They're insect and they're all earth. Now here's the thing about them, is that all of their gimmicks, in terms of their effect monster lineup, has an effect where if this card, when you control it and it's face up and it leaves the field because of your opponent's card effect, then you can special summon 2 crawlers with different names from the deck face down defense position, except for the one that just got removed from the field. And then their Xyz, basically, if they're destroyed by battle or kind of removed by your opponent's card effect, once again, they can special summon 2 crawlers, but they're going to be coming out of the graveyard. So we got that gimmick out of the way. Here's the problem, and it's pretty obvious, is that if your monster's face up, I'm going to run into you. If your monster is face down, I'm going to remove it with an effect. So in other words, either way, you're not getting your effect to go off. So, kind of sucks to be you. Now, let's talk about the monsters. And, well, they're all flip effects. Let's quickly go over it. Spine's like a man-eater bug, destroys a monster. There's a Dendrite, which is a foolish burial. We have Ranvier, which is a salvage for crawler monster. We have Receptor, which is the Stratos. When you flip it, kind of reminds you of Worms. I think Worms is a much better flip archetype, if you ask me. But of course, not all Worms are flip effects. And then there was the Crawler of Glia. Glia is a special summon from the graveyard, so it's okay except for Glia. And then we have Axum, which is the MST. In terms of the other lineup, the one you start with is a Qualiarch. Qualiarch gains more effects as you put more crawlers on the field, but good luck with that too. If you have 2 or more, all your monsters gain 300 attack and defense. 4 or more, your opponent cannot cards effect cannot be activated during the battle phase, which is actually pretty good because it prevents you from getting hit by traps, and that's actually quite important. And if you have 6 or more, you should win the game by now. If you have 6 or more, that means you filled up the entire board with crawlers. All your monsters can attack directly, so you better game them at this point because they can't really respond to any of your attacks. Now you have Neurogos, and we have Synapses. Now both of these monsters, they're both point left and right, so in other words, they're not exactly your go-to crawler monster. But okay, since these aren't your go-to crawler monsters, the first one gives you the utility where all your crawlers that this card points to can make up to 2 attacks and cannot be destroyed by battle. And that's about it. So it's a bit of a utility for extra damage. Basically, you want to get to as many Xyz monsters as possible through your crawlers. And if you have a bunch of these available and then you can do direct attacks, man, they're pretty screwed. I mean, this is 36 damage if you can get the double attack effect going, plus the attack directly. So that's pretty good. And Neurogos, this one, again, has the gain 300 attack, cannot be destroyed by battle, and any battle damage inflicted to your opponent by whatever it's pointed to is doubled. So if you set up a line of crawlers, you can game your opponent very surprisingly. The damage will be super heavy. And let's look into the spell trap lineup. They have Shadows Creeping on World Legacy, that's the field spell. All crawlers gain 300 attack and defense, and you can special summon an additional crawler monster face down or face up return. And on top of that, when a flip monster you control is destroyed by battle. I like this generic flip part because I actually find this part to be quite useful. If a flip monster you control is destroyed by battle by your opponent's monster, you can send that monster to the graveyard. So that's actually pretty useful. It gives the sustainability of these guys getting, attacked face up, maybe a contingency plan. But I kind of wish it was the other way around. And then there's Battle for World Legacy. That's just a World Legacy generic card. It's a banish a card you control, and then you can gain attack for another monster. I believe you can do this during the damage step, so the damage will continue to go through. Or if the monster is removed, then the battle will basically end. And then there is Trap Crawling on World Legacy. Shuffle 5 World Legacy cards and then draw 2 cards. Kind of like a pot of avarice for World Legacy cards. And then there's World Legacy's Puppet, or Puppets of the World Legacy. You can target one face down monster you control, change your face up to attack or defense position. And then you can shuffle a crawler monster from your graveyard to your deck to target one of your face up monster and put them face down. Basically, it's a Book of Tayo and Book of Moon all in one, just so that you can get some crawler support. So you can just flip them, gain additional effects off of your monsters. But overall, the deck is quite slow, quite lackluster, and the name matches it. It's a crawling deck. And whenever you see a face down, if you're old school Yu-Gi-Oh player, you would know the phrase, when it's face down, it will make you frown. And that card is Mirror Force. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. Alright, next archetype that's kind of new is going to be the METAPHYS archetype. This is a banish-based archetype that's mainly worm-based, and the monsters feature a bunch of the old school monsters just in a METAPHYS form. They've ascended to the next level, but this one actually gives us something to play with. Like all the old METAPHYS that we already got previously, they were kind of segregated, they kind of did their own thing. This one is a bit different, and is a bit, to be honest, it's a banish-based mechanic to kind of speed things up. Now note that all these monsters have two effects. One is banished trigger, and the other is the summon by a METAPHYS effect. And when I say summon effect, I mean summon by a METAPHYS effect. So let's go into Daedalus. Daedalus, whenever it's summoned by METAPHYS, you banish all face-up special summon monsters on the field, or all other ones anyway, so it basically wipes the board of any problem monster you have, and has a decent body of 26. If you do banish this card, it triggers, and during the next standby phase, it will shuffle itself back in and dump another monster back into the banish zone. That is, I believe it has to be a METAPHYS. Nethys, summon effect, basically wipes all set spells and traps on the field. And when it's banished, you get to shuffle it back in next standby phase to add another METAPHYS card to your hand. Ragnarok is the one interesting one, because this one doesn't have a banish effect. It has a summon effect. When you normal or special summon this card, banish 3 cards on top of your deck, and for every METAPHYS card you get to gain attack. One interesting thing about this card is that it hits like a farm goal. When you hit something successfully and deal battle damage to your opponent, you get to special summon a level 5 or higher METAPHYS from your deck. But you have to banish it during the next turn, which is okay because you would have triggered the effect already to either wipe the board of special summon monsters or wipe the back row of set spells and traps. And even if it does get banished, then you get that advantage of constantly synergizing, constantly getting more and more banishes. Then we have Tyrant Dragon, which is probably one of the best monsters you gotta kind of tag out, which is he doesn't get affected by trap cards if you do summon him by a METAPHYS effect. And if you do banish him during the next standby phase, you get to special summon a METAPHYS monster from your hand. So you can find 2 ways to trigger. So Ragnarok and Tyrant Dragon are your 2 biggest monster triggers for summoning. And then we have Executor. He's the boss monster, not much to talk about him. He's really hard to get out because you have to banish 5 METAPHYS cards with different name in the graveyard. I guess it's not too bad since it does include spells and traps. But this face-up card on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects or be banished, which is kind of neat. And if you're kind of falling behind in terms of card control on the field, you can special summon a banished METAPHYS monster from your banish zone. That's about it, and then banish it during the end phase. So I guess you could start a chain of banishing. But honestly, to me, the deck does feel a bit slow because everything kind of happens during the next standby phase of the next turn. Only the summoning effects are very impactful, and it's really hard to kind of get a good one going because you're not going to be able to set up that many banishes in one turn to really fuel you into getting that much advantage. In terms of the spell trap lineup right now, we have a field spell, a continuous spell, and a continuous trap. The trap is by far the best. The spell basically lets you normal summon without tributing, and your opponent doesn't get to react to your cards, your METAPHYS monster effects. And the asymmetry, you use this as your draw engine, so you can banish one of your METAPHYS cards in your hand, except for, well, Metaphysical Regeneration, which is a psychic card. If you do, you draw 1 card, and once per turn, if your METAPHYS card is banished, depending on the turn it is, on your turn you gain 500 attack. On your opponent's turn, you could change their monster's battle position or change the battle position of monsters, except for METAPHYS cards. And then this is the best card, METAPHYS Dimension. You got to use this card. If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you get to target one of your METAPHYS banished monsters, special summon it, and then you have to banish it during the next turn. So in other words, it gives you free monsters just because your opponent special summoned cards. So that is pretty neat. I believe it's a trigger-like effect. So if another METAPHYS card is banished while this card is face up, you get to target 1 card your opponent controls and banish it. That reminds me of Dark Magical Circle, like from Dark Magicians. And because you're banishing your own cards very frequently, you're going to be able to get this trigger very often. And you know, guys, you guys know how annoying Dark Magic Crystal Circle is. This is basically the same thing, except that you're going to be triggering even more and more stuff as you go. And for the final new archetype available to us, we have the rOKKET. And rOKKET is an archetype used by Revolver. He used it against Yusaku, that's when they debuted. And I've included some other dragons in here, which is Gateway Dragon, that's just a Link support dragon. There's also Soldier Dragon, which is dragon support, and we have Sniffing Dragon, which is also just dragon support. But these are all used by Revolver, and we have here, for the first rOKKET monster, we have Anis rOKKET. Now, all rOKKET monsters kind of have an effect where if they're targeted by a Link monster effect, they can basically destroy themselves and then get another effect out. And then as a part of the synergy to that effect, when they're destroyed by battle card effect during the end phase, you get to special summon and tether out a new rOKKET monster out of the deck. And it just has to have a different name. That's all. So anyways, starting with Anis rOKKET, when you target it with a Link monster, you can destroy this card and then make a face-up monster unable to attack and unable to use its effect. So it's negated and unable to attack. I believe it's permanent. And then there's the destruction effect. And each of these effect, I believe, is once per turn. So you can't just like spam a bunch of these and just kind of get away with it. But when you do tether out a new guy, you have Magna rOKKET. Magna rOKKET is a monster removal, so if you do target it with a Link monster effect, well, you can send one monster on the field into the graveyard. It's non-destructive removal, it's non-targeting, it is very good in my books, and also has decent stats. At 1800 attack points, you can actually do some damage with this too. So there's also Auto rOKKET, not as high stats but also pretty effective. It is a non-targeting spell trap removal if you target it with a Link monster, so you can destroy itself and then send a spell trap on the field to the graveyard. Non-targeting removal, again, really good in my books. And of course they all contain the ability to special summon another rOKKET out of the deck when they are destroyed by battle card effect during the end phase. It's end phase, not immediately. A bit of a slower tether, but can you imagine if this was immediate? It'd be, to me, a bit ridiculous. But there isn't exactly a lot of monsters able to target them. Like, right now, upon release, we only have one guy that's able to do so. Correct me if I'm wrong, put a link down below of what you think is another monster that can actually trigger these guys constantly. But we have Barrel Dragon to target him, and yeah, it kind of just puts him as ammo and basically shoot them out. So a very suitable name to be Borreload. But there's also Twin Triangle Dragon. I think this one's kind of alright. It requires 2 level 4 or lower dragons accept tokens. When this card's Link summon, pay 500 life points. Target 1 level 5 or higher monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So it doesn't really do anything except for just Link himself up. So this is, I believe, the monster that was brought out was Beltling Dragon. That's kind of cute. Now this archetype does have 2 secret rares. We have Quick Revolve and Squib Draw. Quick Revolve is pretty interesting. You just use this as an E-Tele and then it'll pop itself, in other words, during the end phase. In other words, you're literally getting a free monster. Unlike Emergency Teleport banishes the monster. This one just destroys it. And since you're summoning out rOKKET monsters basically trigger off the destruction effect to bring out a new guy. So you're guaranteed to keep the monster, or keep another monster for that matter. And then we have Squib Draw. You destroy a rOKKET monster you control, you target, destroy it, and then if you do draw 2 cards, it's a quick play spell, so yeah, you can use it during your opponent's turn. And basically you might not get the Link targeting effect to really ruin your opponent's day, but you can put a monster on the field, and if your opponent somehow targets to destroy it, you can destroy it yourself to gain additional cards. It's basically a 1-for-1, but in the end you'll gain a plus because the rOKKET monster will basically tether a new one out. So this was pretty good, but they're both secret rares, so I gotta put a price tag on these boys. I believe Quick Revolve is a bit better, and this archetype isn't that popular. You might see this card at release around like 15 to 20, but probably going to drop down to about 10-15, since they're not really widely played at the moment. And same with Squib Draw. It's probably going to be like a 10-15 release and probably drop to about 5. It's a very neat card, no, don't get me wrong, but it's, again, not some of the secrets that you're looking for in this set. And then we also have a Dragonoid Generator. I think this is just another card that Revolver played. Just additional support for dragons, I guess. It's kind of kind of a cute card. Now, onwards to these cards here, which are just archetype support. We're just going to start off with some cyber stuff. We have Defect Compiler, we have Capacitor Stalker, we have Lincoln Flyer, which kind of is like a special summon onto a Link Zone from your hand, so it's kind of like Photon Thrasher in some degree, but for Links. We have Link Bumper. Just be careful with this card in case your opponent has this basically pointing to one of his other monsters. That monster can deal additional attacks depending on how many links. If your opponent spams a ton of links, and there's a monster that's really strong there, you could just randomly get OTK'd. And then there's the Cyberse Waboku. If Cyberse ever become a burn deck or a stall deck, this would be the card that they're going to run 3 of because, well, it's basically a quick effect Waboku. For the rest of the turn, that monster does neither player takes battle damage, that monster cannot be destroyed by battle. Yeah, it's Waboku. Then there's Cyberse Beacon, which is like Rhoda for them, but you have to take damage to actually get it off. There's Link Restart, which is kind of a cute Link support card. It's a counter trap where if your opponent tries to burn you, you get to negate the activation of that card and destroy it, and then special summon a Link monster out of your graveyard. So kind of very specific, kind of conditional, but maybe it'll come up, I don't know. And then the worst card in the entire set, Remote Reborn. Really, just throw this card in the trash. Target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon to your opponent's main monster zone to a Link monster you control points to. In other words, it has to point up so that they can get a free monster. And they control that monster, so what the hell is the point of reviving? Why do you want to give your opponent an advantage again? Well, maybe you have a Decode Talker that needs additional boost, but that is some weak excuse to give your opponent a monster. Alright, for additional support we have, for Trickstars, we have Dark Angel, we have Trickstar Narcus, and we have Trickstar Sweet Devil. Now, Dark Angel is more of generic fairy support, doesn't really share the Trickstar name, but it is just there because it looks like a Trickstar. Now for Narcus, Narcus is additional burn damage via hand-activated effect or graveyard-activated effect, 200 damage per activation, I believe, and then so this card can be special summoned when your opponent takes effect damage. So that's actually quite a powerful card to be added into the Trickstar arsenal. Now, the Sweet Devil is the exact opposite of the Holly Angel. Correcting my pronunciation, guys. Now, the Sweet Devil is whenever something blows up from where it points to, then it inflicts damage to your opponent. And if your opponent takes damage based off of a Trickstar effect, rather than gain attack, everything on your opponent's side loses attack instead. Now for Goki boost, we have Goki Headbat. Headbat is actually quite interesting. I believe this is the card that they really needed to actually get the Goki deck going, because the Goki deck really needed to set up the graveyard to play Rematch as much as possible. Rematch is such an amazing card, and this card does set it up quite well because it will send another Goki monster from your hand to the graveyard and then target another Goki monster and give it a boost. Okay, so this is an ignition effect, so it's a bit slower, but it does put a Goki monster in the graveyard, and it also special summons itself out, which sets it up for linking a little bit faster. Now, if this card's sent from the graveyard, of course it shares the Goki effect of adding a Goki card from the deck to the hand. And you can only use the effect of Headbat once per turn. So Headbat, I think, is actually a pretty good addition. That's just my opinion, because I did play the Goki deck for a bit. And Gokis do gain Thunder Ogre, which is a 2+ Goki. It's a Link 3 still, kind of like a Decode Talker Links. And, well, you just get additional normal summon to where it points to. So that's actually kind of decent, but since it does require Goki monsters as a recipe, so you're not going to see this used outside of, well, anywhere else other than Gokis. And if a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle card effect, this card gains additional attack. Okay, that's kind of neat, kind of fun. Then we have Mermail support. We have Abyss Nerea. Nerea is okay. I think you can actually have quite a bit of fun with her effect where you can pop a Gradle, and you can trigger off Gradle Eagle's effect to steal a monster and basically gain attack as well. So it's kind of fun, and if she is sent from the field to the graveyard, draw a card, discard a card, so you can trigger off other Mermail cards like Abyss Gund. That's also available. So kind of neat card. I believe there's a lot of applications. You guys tell me what you think about Abyss Nerea. And then there's Mastarbor. Now, Mastarbor is already a super rare, so I don't really need to talk about it. It's just the water version of Mrs. Radiant, and it reduces fire attack. So yeah, that's about it. Nothing too special. We get a little Chimera later too. Then Fire King Avatar. like Ganesha. This elephant avatar here is pretty awesome. It has monster effect negation and capabilities, and it destroys fire monsters, so it does give Fire Kings a little bit of extra oomph. I don't really like this Mecha Phantom Beast because all it does is summon tokens and that's it. And then there's the Spirit Monster, Amano Iwato. I think it's actually a pretty cool monster. It's 1900 attack, so stat-wise it's decent. But the effect is that when this card is normal summon or flip face up, when this card is actually just on the field, monster effects cannot activate. Yeah, except for Spirit Monster. So it basically is like a Majesty's Fiend that you can just normal summon. Yeah. I think this card can see quite a bit of use, especially if you don't play a deck that requires special summoning. If you don't need a special summon, you just spam this, or you have additional special summons. Then you can just drop this to block out hand traps, and then you go off. That's a possibility with this card. And then there's Accumulator, it's just part of the Calculator family, and then there's Ojama Duo. So if you play Ojamas, this card is actually quite amazing because in the graveyard you can banish this card, special summon 2 Ojama monsters with a different name. Maybe we'll see Ojama Lynx. It's a possibility, just don't doubt it, it could happen. Now, onwards to TCG exclusive, the first one I want to talk about is the Synchro monster that we're getting. It's a generic Synchro that's basically a really solid machine support Samurai Destroyer. It just requires 1 tuner, 1 or plus non-tuners. So that kind of goes into the equation of Destrudo. Now, if this card battles a monster, your opponent's cards or effects cannot be activated until the end of the damage step, and also that monster has its effect negated during the battle phase. Holy crap, that is actually a pretty good effect, especially for running over big monsters like Utopia the Lightning. They basically can't activate anything. You can't activate anything. I guess that's all good. So, on top of that, it gains an additional effect of if your opponent wants to remove this monster off of the field via a card effect. If it's removed by your opponent's card effect, you get to special summon a machine monster in your graveyard, so it acts as a monster reborn. So destroying this monster by battle is basically the only option available. But if you have an ABC Dragon Buster in the graveyard and they decide to remove this via Regeki or whatever, you get to bring out that ABC Dragon Buster and really just put the pain on your opponent. So this card I think we'll see play of course, in an ABC deck. And that's just my take on it, especially for those builds that do run Destrudo. Okay, well, on top of that, now we have the FAs. Now I forgot what they're called. FAs, they have 2 additional monsters and 2 additional spells. One's Pit Stop and one's Off-Road Grand Prix. One's a new field spell, one's another quick play spell. Most of their spells are always going to be quick play, but this quick play spell actually lowers the level and acts as a draw engine. You have to draw cards kind of like, I believe there's another card that was similar. You draw based off of the numbers of additional copies of this exact card in the graveyard. I believe it's Goblin Housekeeping or whatever, something similar to that. Now, this one you get to draw +1 of that, so you're guaranteed an Upstart Goblin on the first activation. You're going to be able to get an additional card in the second activation. You get additional 2 cards on the third activation. It does lower the level of your cards, but however, it does have a grave effect as well, and there's more on that later. Now, the 2 monsters, you're going to get a Whip Cross. Whip Cross is quite an interesting card. If you actually get this card up to level 7, your opponent cannot activate cards that require a discarding or send to graveyard cost. That is quite good. You actually turn off all the hand traps from your opponent because all the hand traps basically have a discard or a send to graveyard cost. So yeah, that shuts out Maxi, shuts out basically all the hand traps. And then there's also the other one monster, which is Turbochargers. That's a targeting magnet. I think that target magnet is okay. I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar with the FA archetype because no one really played it and there was just so little support previously. Maybe we'll see some fun decks kind of build out and maybe they're actually really fun. Maybe we actually turbo duel it out. I don't know. Now, then we now have Vendreads. Okay, for Vendread, we have Vendread Knights Reunion, we have Vendread Chimera, which is a secret rare, and the new fodder monster, which is Vendread Strix, which is kind of like a crow. There's just a bunch of flying monsters in there. Anyways, the Reunion trap card is actually quite interesting because it is a trap card that does do a ritual summon, kind of like Urgent Ritual, but this one, basically you reveal one of your Vendread ritual monster in your hand, and then you target or special summon any number of Vendread monsters that have been banished in face down defense position, but the level of those monsters must equal to the one that you revealed. And then you tribute all of them, and then perform your ritual summon. So that's the trap. So I guess that way you can actually get all their effects off. So that's kind of neat. To me, that's kind of cool. Now, the Vendred secret rare, which is Vendred Chimera, has a pretty decent effect by base. Like, unlike Vendred Slayer, that is kind of weenie until you get like some of the stronger effects. This card has the effect of protecting cards from being destroyed by card effects. So anything that has a destruction effect, it can banish a zombie and negate it. So it kind of synergizes a little bit better, in my opinion. And then we have also Vendred Knights, and Vendred Knights effect not really confirmed, but it's a super rare. Perhaps will add additional synergy to the deck. And that's all I really have to say about the TCG exclusives. Now, if there's anything to be really excited about in terms of this set, at least the imports are very good. We've got Lunalight Crimson Fox and we got Kaleido Chick, so both of these really sought out after Lunalight cards are now available to us. On top of that, we also have Luralust Recite Starling, which is one of the most aggressive rank 1 cards that you'll see play in Spirals. It's so aggressive, it will boost something by 600 by at least 600 on the Xyz summon. If you have DD Crow in your deck, you can search for DD Crow. And any kind of battle damage involving this card, basically any battle damage you take from attacks involving this Xyz summon card is also inflicted to your opponent. So if your opponent leaves a big monster on the field and you have the life points to spare, you can go for game quite easily. You can be like, I'll just swing my dude into you, you'll take, say, that was a 3,000, so they will take 2,400 additional damage, and you can pop the monster, say, with Spiral Sleeper, and then you swing with the rest of it. Just so much additional damage. It's very, very scary. And if you missed those stuff on Battle of Legends, we've also got Amazon Spy, Pet Liger, and the Empress, all available to us now. It's a bit late, but better late than never. Then there's also this weird Floodgate-esque monster. A spell. I'm just losing it right now. Just pretty tired. But yeah, if you special summon, you can't normal summon. If you normal summon, you can't special summon. You can only activate this card when you control no monster during your main phase 1. So it's got a very limited activation window. But hey, it's kind of interesting, I guess. If your opponent needs to normal summon, like, they'll be stuck out of a special summon. So you gotta really consider what deck they're playing, and this could be a next interesting Floodgate. Next we have number 41, Baguska. I'm really glad this card's not a secret rare, because I honestly thought it would. It says Stupor Beast here, ignore all that, that's just OCG jargon. But this is the best rank 4 available, in my opinion. It is Skill Drain on legs. If it's in defense mode, it put everything else in defense mode, and things in defense mode cannot activate. So there's that. And then, sorry, if they activate, they just don't do anything. And then if it's in attack mode, well, basically your opponent can't target it with effects, and also cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So overall, it's a very, very strong opening card. It will hold the board on its own. And as for one of the last imports, I know this is a bit of a OCG card here, but it is Subterror Behemoth Fiendus. 2 flip monsters for the recipe. It points these 2 directions, the bottom 2 corners, and I guess it does give your flip monster additional bonuses to play. I'm not going to go over all their effects, because holy crap, we've been in this video for a very long time already. And for the remaining cards, I'll just talk about these ones briefly. Some of these are a bit more notable than others, starting with Hallow Hallow, which is the TCG preview exclusive number 000. This one is a Fiend Pendulum Tuner normal monster. It's level 3, so I believe you can use a tour guide, and it's a Fiend, so you can overlay with it to make a Dante or make a just a generic rank 3. But also, because it is a normal monster, you can use Unexpected Die to actually summon it out, and then you can actually synchro with it, so there's that too. And for any pendulum support, I believe you can actually just use it to dig it out as well, using Painful Decision. Yeah, lots of things there. So there's also Nimble Beaver, which is just nimble support. Let's do tether out more nimble monsters. There's the Conjoined Bird, which is a union monster that gives you 2 attacks, but it also lowers your attack to 1,000. There's Dorado Grace. This one, well, it's a boss monster. If you control multiple attributes in your graveyard, you special summon it, and then every time your opponent would special summon a monster, you can just banish 3 monsters out of the graveyard, and then you negate and destroy that summon. And I don't think that's once per turn, so it's pretty spammy, but then you'll reduce your own attack. Duck Dropper is a very interesting Gemini monster that, if you do get the Gemini effect out, your opponent can attack you directly. Yeah, and I don't think they can attack. Yeah, I don't think they can attack your monsters anymore, so they just have to go for direct attacks. Blast Dance, a flip effect monster that deals 1,000 damage. If this card is destroyed by battle card effect, sent to the graveyard, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. I guess that's if your opponent hits into it, they take 2,000, you take 1,000. So I guess that's kind of cute. This is a bamboo sword that skips your opponent's main phase if you control another bamboo sword. This one's an interesting card. The Altar of the Mind's Eye, basically all battle damage turns into 1,000. So even if it's the weakest amount of damage, you still do 1,000. So if you play a deck where you can spam out multiple attacks, whether it be like an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, or something that just constantly spams cards into your opponents and you just keep hitting them with it, you could potentially just OTK your opponent. Just saying. Then there's also a Replenishment Squad where whenever you take damage, for every 1,000 damage you draw 1 card. So I think Supply Squad's a bit better. Rivals. Arrival is a quick play spell to give you an additional normal summon in the battle phase. That's it. All it does is give you a summon. So you can kind of think of it as one of those like those Monarch Tribute summoning cards, except that it's just a normal monster, so you can just bring a dude out. I believe you can tribute summon with this card too, since a normal summon does kind of encompass a tribute summon as well, but probably you require the right access to it first. Kind of cute card though. And then there's, to me, this is one of my favorite cards. One-time passcode just generates a token. It's free, doesn't have any restrictions. It's just a token with 2,000, 2,000, so it's just a free special summon to basically push forward to making a link play. Okay, and then there is Hojama Duel. Kind of already talked about this one. There's also Shut Line, which is the counter trap for whatever that's in the same line as the current row. And then there's Metaverse, the next terraforming, which you can search a field spot into your hand, or you can directly activate it onto the field. And this card is very good for anti-meta decks that are playing Defense Zone. That's just my opinion on this. If I'm missing anything, or if there's anything you really want in this set, let me know down in the comment section below what you think about this set. Do you think like the lower rarity is actually a very good thing? Do you think like all the high rarity stuff is even worth anything, or do you think it's just so much hype? Maybe Konami's changing things up so that they can hit the ban list a little bit faster. I would like to know your thoughts. But if you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed me talking, I'm losing my voice as I'm doing this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And I'm just trying a new layout here. It's very difficult for me to kind of set up all this stuff, but do it for you guys. Love you guys very much. And as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.